This My Thoughts Monday is brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of the Rolls-Royce of barbell monitoring technology, the GymAware. Guys, in season training, we rock the GymAware all the time for quite a few reasons. The first, of course, is just that, the ding. Every time the athlete hears that, they know that they're hitting exactly what we need from them at that moment. And when they don't hear it, it brings out that extra little bit of competitiveness within themselves. On top of that, that awesome ding ends out bringing together the athletes as well, pushing each other and getting each other to be able to hit numbers that they probably wouldn't hit at that portion of the year. And finally, of course, that ding helps us monitor, manipulate, and keep track of volumes and intensities so we can best dose our athletes during the season at the right time with the right amount. Guys, hop over to kinetic.com.au and check out what Evan and the team down there have, because this is absolutely a sensational product that's changed the way that we've trained our athletes. This edition of My Thoughts Monday is brought to you by Valve Performance, the team behind the Nordboard, ForceDex, the Groin Bar, and Human Track. Guys, the most important ability for all of our athletes is availability, and that's the absolute goal of Valve Performance, is to provide solutions to performance professionals so that we can get the right information to make the right decision at the right time for the betterment of the athletes that we get to work with. To do this, guys, they have a wide range of validated products that focus on usability, and having being founded by the School of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences at the Queensland University of Technology, they're extremely evidence-based and they're beyond transparent. I can tell you that our time using the Nordboard and being involved with ForceDex, we have been introduced to so many amazing people that have truly helped us become better coaches, have a better understanding, not just of the technology, but also what we're doing with our athletes. So make sure you hop over to valveperformance.com today to make sure you check out what they got. It's going to make you better and to do better by your athletes. Hey, what's happening, everybody? DeMayo coming at you with this week's edition of My Thoughts Monday. Today, I kind of want to talk about some things that have been rattling around my head here a little bit, and really have been impacted by some things that have been going on here recently, about a week or so ago from when this is recorded. So I've been talking a lot recently about history, right? Like what really got this vocation started, and then, I've always been beating the drum about understanding vernacular and the history behind where these terms came from so that we could be on the same page. But today I'd kind of like to talk a little bit about a different history, and that's like, personal history. And I think one that a lot of coaches can connect with, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I think the biggest part of this history is what actually got us into training. What was the driving factor behind a vast majority, I would assume, I could be wrong, but I would assume a pretty strong majority of strength and conditioning or sport performance or physical preparation or whatever this Monday we're calling ourselves coaches, what got us into this? And it used to be for a long time where you would listen to podcasts or you would read written Q&As from coaches, and they would talk about when they were bit by the iron bug, like what got them into the weight room, like when they fell in love with training. And that's changed. Now more often than not, you hear people talking about how, we're in this for relationships and building better people and all of these things. And that's great. It's 100% what you should be doing, right? Like, that's what coaching is. But with that being said, let's not forget that most of us got into it for the other reason, that we love training, that there's something about it. Whether you were training for a powerlifting meet or a 5K or a CrossFit competition or a weightlifting meet or bodybuilding show, whatever it might be, there was something about that room that got hold of you and that drew you into what we do now. And that's awesome. But I think that all changes as we start to get old and gray. I think as we start to hurt, as we start to ache, as we start to slow down, because we get a little older, a little slower, a little wiser, I think that we start to look at things in a different manner. And it took me kind of being challenged by myself because of some coaches and some people that I really look up to and how hard they challenge themselves and how they challenge people every day, whether it be through social media or just as friends. But it's been something that I've worked at and I've looked at, and I took a week and I just ran some gut check stuff, man. Like I sat there and really tried to pound out some tough workouts, some things that are not necessarily what I would like to do all the time. And it was awesome. And it reminded me of how important that feeling is, how important that drive is to want to train, to want to push, to want to be better, to want to find a better way to be the best that you can be at all of these things, because that's what got us here in the first place, right? The idea of getting bit by the iron bug, the idea of loving and finding joy in that strain, in that stress, in that pain that so much of us fell for. Whether you were training for a powerlifting meet and it was, that blackout phase right at the bottom in a suit, or you were training for a 5K and it was that sense of euphoria hitting the finish line, or, you just collapsing at the end that from pushing yourself to the limit. Like that's what we started for. A lot of us. And I got reminded that. And it's important that it reminded me that for a couple reasons. The first of which is it brought me back to my 20s, where I remembered and understood what that felt like and what at times we need from our athletes. It allowed them to identify with it a bit. Probably better too than when I started this 20 years ago, because we didn't have these phones and Instagram or Twitter, and they were able to see that, like what I was doing, and then I was pushing, and then I was finding that gear again. Maybe your kids are different than mine. Actually, I'm pretty sure that yours are, but we all have different groups. But I think that one thing that most of these kids today, most of these young people that we get the pleasure of working with, um, they buy in and when they see it. And they get excited when they see you doing things and working and battling and grinding. So they were able to see this gut check week. They were able to check in and see what was going on. They were able to talk a little trash. But they were also able to sit there and realize that the old man is still pushing it. So they don't have that excuse. And I think that more so often now than before, the more that they can see that, the more that they understand it, and the more that they'll be involved in it. But it also reminded me what they feel like, right? Because we're asking them to do these things. We're asking them to push limits, to break down barriers, to toughen up, if you may, to find that next gear in order to increase their performance. Because, understanding that you do have more to give, you do have another gear, you can go further, you can lift more, it's part of what we do. And reminding myself what that felt like and how that was and where that puts you, like mentally and emotionally and physically in that situation, is important. Because if you're going to sit there and ask them to push through, but you don't remember where those barriers are and how those barriers feel, you may not really understand what they're pushing to, or if they are or aren't. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be doing everything that you have your athletes doing. There was a day I did. You're right. You could probably find that on YouTube, actually. Shoot, you could probably find that on a couple podcasts. But again, as you get old and gray, you start to understand that there are different ways that you can learn what that's like and revisit what that's like. Because I think keeping that in touch with who you are, because I think keeping in touch with who you were as a strength and conditioning coach, as a person that loves training, as a person that loved the weight room, as a person that desired more of that to increase performance, but also just loved training, is a huge reminder for where we began for most of us. And again, I don't think that it means that if you were a power lifter at 25 that you got to go up there and get on the platform at 40. That might not be in your best interest. But maybe if you were a power lifter at 25, maybe now you're running, maybe now you're doing something else, maybe now it's CrossFit. I don't know. Whatever, dude. Do you. But this gut check week reminded me a lot of things. And the biggest thing it reminded me is how much I need that and how important that is to me. And I think that that's important to a lot of, if not all of us, that are in this small little corner of athletics. So keep the fight. Keep pushing. Keep driving. Find different ways to challenge yourself. Whether it be physically, mentally, whatever. But get after it. Because it really opened my eyes again. I'd love to hear how you're challenging yourself. What are some different things you're doing? What are you finding that is pushing you forward, reminding you of the coach that you used to be? Reminding you of why you got into this. Because yeah, people evolve and things change and we become better at a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. But a tree stays where it is because of its roots. You got to remember those too sometimes, I think. Huge shout out to Mark Megna for being the guy that kind of kicked me in the butt and got me back on this. Appreciate you, brother. Love you, man. I wish you knew how much of an impact you've had on me, brother, so thank you so much. But let me know what y'all are doing. Love to hear it. Love to see it. Put in the work. As always, appreciate everything you do for us here at Central Virginia Sport Performance. Be back next week with another My Thoughts Monday. I'll see you then.